The wind over the steppe was eerily still that night. Inside a dim military outpost near the border, the low hum of servers filled the silence. Rows of operators sat before glowing monitors, fingers hovering over keyboards. At the center sat Sergeant Andriy Kovalenko, a drone pilot whose eyes had grown used to the pale blue light of control screens. Tonight's mission was unlike any before. The operation, codenamed Spectre Swarm, involved 157 autonomous drones, each programmed for precision, coordination, and silence. They weren't designed to destroy. Their purpose was to overwhelm, confuse, and expose weaknesses in the enemy's defense systems. "Commence launch sequence Alpha through Echo," Major Ritsenko ordered, his tone calm but heavy. One by one, green icons blinked alive on the map. Andriy whispered under his breath as they appeared, "That's 10, 20, 50, until all 157 glowed across his screen. From afar, it would look like a constellation had come alive. Each drone rose from its launch pad with quiet grace, their synchronized paths forming a web of light across the digital sky. Beside him, Alina, his co-operator, adjusted her headset. Lebedyn sector confirmed. "Coordinates locked," she said softly. Andriy had heard of Lebedyn, an industrial city miles across the border. Factories, rail lines, warehouses, and families. He reminded himself this wasn't an offensive strike. Still, he couldn't shake the thought of the people who might look up and see their work tonight. "Altitude steady," Alina reported. "Swarm synchronization 100%, Andriy added. Major Ritsenko nodded. "Let's begin." Hundreds of kilometers away, Natalia Sokolova, a literature teacher in Lebedyn, stirred awake. The power had flickered twice that night. She thought nothing of it. She lived alone in a small apartment, with her cat curled beside her. Then came a faint, unfamiliar hum. At first, she thought it was wind. But the sound grew steadier, multiplied, spreading across the horizon. She stepped to her balcony. The sky was gray-blue, the stars still visible, but moving. Tiny dots glided soundlessly across the sky, dozens, maybe hundreds. They weren't planes. They moved too smoothly, too deliberately. "Drones," she whispered, uncertain if she even believed it. Moments later, the air raid sirens wailed, their rise and fall slicing through the stillness. Natalia's hands trembled as she closed the balcony door. The television flickered to life on its own emergency broadcast mode. Unidentified aerial activity detected. "Remain indoors." The hum grew louder. The floor vibrated faintly, yet there were no explosions. No crashes, only the steady sound of machines passing unseen. In the control room, Andriy watched the swarm's formation shift with precision. Drones Alpha through Gamma created interference grids. Delta units mapped radar patterns. Epsilon units simulated decoy signals. "Enemy radar active," Alina said as static filled her screen. "Jamming initiated," Andriy responded. A burst of static cut through the radio. Loss of visual on 18 drones. Ritsenko didn't flinch. "Acceptable threshold. Maintain course." Andriy's monitor flickered, stabilizing again. 142 active, he reported. They had trained for months for this, to coordinate dozens of independent aircraft as if they were one living organism. Each drone carried no weapons, only sensors and electromagnetic disruptors designed to blind enemy systems temporarily. "Lebedyn communication grid faltering," Alina said. "Transmission delays detected." "Good," Ritsenko replied. "That's the point." But Andriy wasn't smiling. He saw something deeper, the faces behind those signals. The lives behind the flickering power lines. Back in Lebedyn, the city had fallen into half-light. Street lamps blinked irregularly. The electric trams stopped mid-track. People emerged cautiously from their buildings, staring upward. Some recorded the strange sight, a vast swarm of lights that shimmered above the clouds like a false aurora. Natalia stood at her window, holding her cat close. She saw faint glimmers reflected on nearby rooftops. It looked almost beautiful until the city sirens roared again. Her phone buzzed, messages from friends. They say it's Ukrainian drones. The power station went down. Don't go outside. She sat on her couch, heart pounding, trying to stay calm. The broadcast repeated, no confirmed damage. Please stay indoors. Then silence. The drones were gone. The hum faded. The sky, once alive with movement, was now empty again. Hours later, at the Ukrainian Control Center, the mission concluded. Data streams poured in, radar disruptions confirmed, air defense systems overloaded, communication lines tested. Success rate 89%, Alina said. Mission accomplished, Andriy confirmed quietly. The operators exhaled, fatigue replacing adrenaline. Screens dimmed one by one as the last drones returned or deactivated. Ritsenko finally spoke. Gentlemen and ladies, history just changed tonight. But Andriy wasn't thinking of history. He was thinking of the city, of the woman he'd never meet, staring at the same sky. By morning, Lebedyn was buzzing with rumors. Some said hundreds of drones had attacked. Others claimed it was a false alarm. Official reports called it an electronic interference event. No casualties, no destruction. Just silence and confusion. Natalia walked through the quiet streets. The sky was pale, and people gathered in small groups, talking in low voices. She overheard an old man say, "War isn't about bombs anymore. It's about who controls the air." At school, her students whispered excitedly, asking if she had seen the lights. She smiled faintly and said, "Yes, and I hope we never see them again." That evening, she wrote in her journal, "The night the machines came not to destroy, but to remind us how fragile the world has become." 2 days later, news outlets around the world exploded with headlines. Massive drone attack. 157. Ukrainian drones strike Russian city of Lebedyn. Largest drone operation of the conflict. Clips recorded by civilians went viral. The glowing drones looked mesmerizing, a coordinated dance of technology across the sky. Many viewers mistook it for an art installation. Andriy watched one of those videos on his phone. The same swarm he had controlled now looked peaceful, almost poetic. Strange, he murmured, how something meant for war looks so beautiful. Alina smiled sadly. That's what scares me, she said. Weeks passed. Analysts debated what it all meant. Was it escalation or evolution? Officials denied, confirmed, and then denied again. But in quiet corners of both countries, the people who had seen it firsthand remembered not the politics, but the feeling, that uneasy awe as the sky filled with silent thinking machines. Andriy eventually took leave and returned home to his mother's farm. The hum of the fields felt like peace. When asked if he was proud of what he did, he only said, "I hope one day these machines will be used for something better." In Lebedyn, Natalia resumed her normal life. But sometimes, when power lines buzzed in the evening wind, she'd glance up, half expecting to see those lights again. She didn't fear them anymore, only the silence that followed. Because that night, she realized something simple and profound. Wars can come quietly now, not with fire, but with data. And perhaps, someday, peace will come the same way.